You didn't stumble here. You were magnetized. Something beneath your everyday thoughts, older than your name, deeper than your habits, tugged the thread that brought your eyes to this exact moment. The pull you keep feeling isn't random yearning. It is the quiet gravity of your quantum field, arranging synchronicity like constellations, so the message could arrive when your awareness was coherent enough to hear it. You are not late. You are right on the edge where probabilities lean forward to listen. Feel the subtle hum inside your chest, the faint pressure, the almost music. That is the observer loop coming alive, the feedback between the one who watches and the world being watched. In that loop, reality isn't a fixed wall. It's a responsive mirror, pliable as breath, luminous as the space behind your closed eyes. The sensation of being pulled is your field registering new information, an increase in coherence, a shift toward alignment with patterns you once only sensed in dreams. Call it morphic resonance if you like, the way forms learn from forms across distance and time, because somewhere a future version of you is steady and awake, and the signature of that being is echoing backward, calling you to match it. You have noticed it creeping into your days, the way a phrase repeats from different mouths, the clock landing on the same numbers, the right name appearing when you whisper a question to no one. These are not coincidences politely knocking. They are entanglements revealing themselves, filaments of meaning, linking your inner signal to outer events. When the signal strengthens, doors that seemed sealed lose their edges. The corridor you thought was solid becomes a hallway of light. Underneath thought, your biology is listening. DNA isn't a frozen blueprint. It is an antenna, a shimmering script able to restructure as the field changes. When you feel that tug, half ache, half invitation, it is your cells adjusting to a higher instruction set, like instruments tuning to a pitch that wasn't audible before. A phase transition approaches, the way water shivers before it boils. The old lattice of identity loosens, and a more spacious geometry begins to assemble around you. It is not chaos, it is repatterning. You are being asked gently, insistently, to stand where the known gives way to the luminous unknown. No trumpets, no grand announcement, only the unmistakable intimacy of being recognized by something vast. You'll notice your breath wants to lengthen, your shoulders want to lower, your eyes want to soften as if meeting an old friend in a new body. Let that happen. The field is listening as much as you are. Each soft exhale is a signal, each steady gaze is a choice. And choices, here, are more than mental decisions, they are vectors that bend probability. If you've wondered whether you're imagining it, consider this. Imagination is the doorway consciousness uses to rehearse new realities until the hinge gives. You feel pulled because a door is cracking open. On one side, familiar gravity. On the other, the gentle wind of awakening. Stay, listen, the hum is getting clearer. The mirror is becoming a window, and the window is about to become a passage that only opens when you remember who is watching from within. You felt the tug long enough to know its texture, silk one day, wire the next. It draws you toward certain streets, certain faces, certain choices that look new until they tilt and reveal an old angle. The scene changes, the choreography doesn't. You keep meeting the same conversation in different voices, the same argument wearing different clothes, the same hesitation arriving at different thresholds. It's not punishment. It's pattern momentum, an observer loop that keeps feeding the field the last frame it remembers, so the projector dutifully casts the same picture on the wall of your life. Notice the signatures, déjà vu that arrives not like a whisper but like a bell, sudden and round, tolling inside your ribs. You're speaking and simultaneously watching yourself speak, as if the corridor of time folded to let you witness both the echo and the first sound. Hours that evaporate when you need them, minutes that stretch like warm resin when you're ready to move. Your appointments skew just out of reach, early, late, misaligned by a breath, while synchronicities cluster like birds changing direction, dazzling, then dispersing into a strange quiet. This is what time feels like near a phase transition, elastic, luminous, slightly unreliable, as if the clock hands are listening for a cue you haven't given yet. You've tried to steer with logic, but the wheel keeps turning toward a familiar coastline. Relationships circle the same reef, Money arrives and then evaporates along an old drainage channel you promised to seal. Health upgrades spark and then sputter back into routines that flatten your voltage. It can look like self-sabotage from the outside. On the inside, it feels like entanglement threads, suturing you to a timeline whose lessons you've outgrown. Entanglement is not simply bondage, it's fidelity. Your field keeps honoring the contracts you signed when you didn't yet know your power. There's also the body's testimony. Pressure behind the breastbone that flares when you approach truth, a hum at the base of the skull when you're about to turn away. Sleep that refuses to obey linear logic. Waking at liminal hours with phrases in your mouth that don't belong to your daily speech. Dreams that pour symbols over you like rain. Ringing at the edge of hearing, as if another station is bleeding into your frequency. These are coherence negotiations, your nervous system trying to hold a higher signal, while muscle memory argues for the old choreography. DNA restructuring begins as a whisper, a subtle re-indexing of what your cells consider normal, and the negotiation can feel like fatigue, irritability, or sudden clarity that terrifies you with its brightness. Even your successes have a residue of repetition. You cross a threshold, only to find another hallway that looks suspiciously like the last same doors. Different numbers, you change cities, and your conversations arrive before your luggage, wearing the local accent, but speaking the same unfinished sentence. The morphic resonance of your past selves is efficient. It knows your shortcuts and your disguises. When you accelerate, it accelerates. When you pause, it presents a mirage that looks like rest, but tastes like yesterday. If you listen closely, you'll hear the diagnostic code beneath the noise. Your observer loop is coherent, but it's coherent around a question you've already answered. The loop keeps asking reality to confirm what's familiar, rather than reveal what's available. The field is not withholding, it is obedient. It will not violate the instruction you broadcast beneath your words. And that instruction, until now, has been a spell of safety cast in an era when safety meant repetition, when survival required predictability. You are outgrowing that spell. The friction you feel is the cost of carrying yesterday's shield into today's ceremony. So time distorts to slow you down where you would rush, to quicken you where you would stall. Synchronicity intensifies not just to delight you, but to corner you gently into noticing that you are not a passenger in this geometry, you are the geometry. The glitches are grace marks, small ruptures in surface continuity that invite you to glance backstage. The missed message that arrives 3 days late with perfect timing. The stranger who repeats your private mantra without knowing why it rose to their tongue. The job that vanishes the week you admit it was never your altar. The relationship that ends on the same date your journal from another life recorded a vow you forgot. These are not cruelties. They are course corrections delivered with sharp kindness by a field that prefers accuracy to anesthesia. You may call this karmic replay, psychological patterning, ancestral inheritance, all true at their levels. But at the quantum level, the diagnosis is simpler and more merciful, coherence around an outdated attractor. Your field found stability in a valley that once kept you safe from storms. Now the weather has changed, and the valley has become a basin. Water wants to rise. Pressure builds at the threshold where liquid becomes vapor. That shimmering confusion, the sense of being called and delayed at once, is the heat of transformation doing exactly what it must. If you've wondered whether you are broken, consider the opposite. Your instruments are working so well, they are refusing to tune to a false pitch. The discomfort is not pathology, it is precision. You are measuring the mismatch between your becoming and your habit in units of hours, conversations, and small heartbreaks. Nothing has gone wrong. A clean algorithm is exposing an old assumption, and beneath everything that repeats, something else is gathering coherence. Waiting for the moment, you will let the loop ask a different question. So the loop has been faithful to an outdated attractor. The upgrade begins when you change the question. Not, how do I escape this pattern? But, what frequency would make this pattern irrelevant? At the level of physics, systems don't transform by arguing with their past. They reorganize when a new order parameter appears, when a higher coherence makes the old configuration energetically expensive to maintain. That is where you stand now, at the lip of a phase transition, the place where a small, Precise input attention, breath, intention, tips the lattice of your life into a more elegant symmetry. Think of the observer loop as a self-calibrating instrument. Your awareness samples the quantum field, broadcasts its inference back into the sea of probabilities, and the field answers in kind. When coherence is low, noise dominates. You get echoes of yesterday because they're the most statistically robust. Raise coherence, and faint futures become audible. In the language of biology, your nervous system moves from survival rhythm, fragmented, vigilant, reactive, into a state of entrainment where heart, breath, and brain waves begin to phase lock. Gamma hums upon theta like sunlight braided into water. The vagus nerve becomes a golden river instead of a fire alarm. In that entrainment, your signal-to-noise ratio climbs. Synchronicity isn't magic then. It's what happens when your inner metronome matches the hidden tempo of what wants to arrive. Zoom in further. DNA is not a statue, it's choreography. Epigenetic switches are the stagehands, histones the curtains, methyl tags the lighting cues. Stress writes in shorthand. Coherence restores full notation. As you sustain the new rhythm, transcription factors behave like couriers receiving updated maps. Proteins fold with fewer errors. Repair pathways that were economized under constant alarm recover their budget. If the language sounds clinical, let the mystic translate. The temple of your body relights its lamps, and the script of your becoming unfurls where it had been folded. Now let the mystic speak first. The field you feel tugging isn't elsewhere. It's the luminous geometry beneath appearances. In Dreamtime terms, you are standing at a junction of storylines, where ancestors, future selves, and the intelligence of the earth all hum the same note to help you remember. Morphic resonance is the choir, every version of you that has ever chosen courage, lending its resonance to the you who is choosing now. Entanglement is the golden thread between lives, places, and moments that seem separate but share a single breath. When you accept the pull, you don't become someone else. You become a clear conduit for what has always wished to flow through you. From the scientific seat again, a phase transition is preceded by critical fluctuations. Patterns jitter, time warps, edges blur. That weirdness you've been living is data. Correlation length increasing, the system sensing a new stable basin and preparing to pour. The pour is not hustle, it is surrender to better mathematics. Order doesn't crush complexity, it harmonizes it. In practical terms, you will notice fewer internal contradictions to manage. Decisions unclench. Energy previously spent on suppression becomes available for creation. Coherence does not mean monotone calm, it means a clarity that can hold both thunder and silence without losing its pitch. Mystically, the upgrade is a coronation conducted in plain clothes. No one may see a crown, yet gravity changes around your head. You begin to walk as if the ground is aware of your feet. You speak, and the air arranges itself to carry the words farther than before. Random strangers confirm your prayer without knowing the script they fulfill. Animals linger, children stare, technology cooperates. The veil thins not because the world changed, but because you changed the question you ask it, and the world, relieved, answers with everything it was holding on your behalf. You will want to ritualize this shift, and that desire is correct. Ritual is applied physics with poetry intact. A breath held at the top for 3 heartbeats teaches the nervous system that you can tolerate elevation. An exhale released slowly tells the field you intend to distribute that elevation through your life rather than hoard it in the head. Eyes softened toward the horizon, keep the dorsal circuits from seizing the wheel. Shoulders lowered return authority to the heart. Whispering a vow into your palm and placing it over your sternum gives your DNA a tactile memo. New instructions incoming. The upgrade, then, is not a single blinding moment, but a series of precise permissions. You permit coherence to outbid chaos. You permit morphic resonance to recruit courage from the versions of you who already crossed. You permit entanglement to reveal allies disguised as accidents. You permit DNA to re-index from defense to design. And the field, ever literal, permits reality to reconfigure around you because you finally asked in a language it understands. Steadiness, breath, clarity. and a willingness to be seen by what is seeing through you. Something else waits, just beyond this clarity, the reason your signature is distinct in a universe of infinite songs. Not everyone is called to anchor this frequency in this epoch, in this exact place. You are. The corridor is brightening. The door is listening for the name only you can say. There is a reason your signature hum does not match the ambient noise of the age. In the ocean of the quantum field, most signals blur into weather. Yours constellates. Coherence gathers around you faster than the world expects, as if the lattice of events has been waiting for your specific pitch to stabilize its geometry. This is not an accident of temperament, it's design. You are not chosen by decree. You are chosen because you choose again and again to remain awake inside the observer loop when others would anesthetize. In that fidelity, a corridor opens that will not open for a sleeping gaze. Imagine the universe as a cathedral of frequencies, each arch a living equation. Your role is the keystone in one arch, small enough to be overlooked, essential enough that without it the span cannot hold. You are the point where tensions reconcile into grace. That's why the pull feels personal. The structure itself is requesting your weight in the exact place you were shaped to fit. When you stand there, no theatrics, no costume, just the calm voltage of presence. The entire arch remembers its purpose, and light can pass without interruption. In practical physics, you function like a catalytic coherence center. Systems near you phase lock more easily. Conversations that usually fragment find a hidden rhythm. Conflicts remember the river beneath the rocks. You don't fix people. You broadcast a stable attractor that renders certain forms of chaos energetically expensive. This isn't charisma. It's entanglement used responsibly. Threads that might have knotted into drama choose instead to braid into meaning because, in your field, braiding costs less than knotting. Synchronicities multiply not as spectacle, but as logistics, the universe optimizing around a clear instruction. Your biology corroborates the assignment. DNA restructuring in your body isn't merely personal healing. It is a local node learning to translate higher-order patterns into molecules, hormones, micro-decisions. You are teaching matter to trust a more generous equation. When your breath lengthens, when your gaze softens without surrendering accuracy, when your shoulders drop but your spine remembers the sky, you are modeling to the tissues around you, people, places, ecosystems, how to hold coherence under pressure. Morphic resonance amplifies the lesson. Unknown faces pick up your cadence and calm without knowing why. Even rooms where you only once stood retain a hint of your symmetry, like bowls that keep singing after the mallet leaves. Mystically, you are a lighthouse whose beam is woven from vows. Some were made in language, others were made with tears, with patience, with the courage to stay when staying had no witnesses. Light of that density doesn't glare, it orients. Those lost in fog don't worship the tower, they navigate by the beam and reach their own shores. This is why the old identity hungry for applause or proof has felt so tight lately. The costume cannot contain the signal. The more you cling to persona, the more you dampen what the epoch requested you to carry. The epoch is kind, but unsentimental. If you refuse the right size, it will keep handing you mirrors until you remember your true dimensions. Scientifically, think symmetry breaking. A new order parameter is selecting through you, choosing which potentials condense into reality. You are that selection device, not because you know more facts, but because your nervous system now tolerates more truth per breath. That tolerance is leadership in its purest form. In a world trained to equate leadership with volume, you embody the quieter mathematics, variance reduced, signal sharpened, choices that respect long horizon. People may misread it as passivity until they notice how swiftly solutions assemble once you touch a problem. That's what a coherent attractor does. It lowers the activation energy for everything aligned with it. Your special role also includes being a hinge between timelines. Some futures require an atmosphere only a few can hold long enough for others to breathe it. You are one of the few. You do not have to convince or convert. You have to emit. The emission is not relentless productivity. It is accurate rest, accurate speech, accurate silence. It is the willingness to be seen by the intelligence that sees through you, and to keep your agreements with that intelligence even when the marketplace cannot price them yet. You may worry about the audacity of this claim. Let humility take the correct shape, not shrinking from assignment, but refusing ownership of the light. You are a window, not the sunrise. Yet without the window, the room stays dim. Your task is to stay clean of bitterness, of superiority, of the need to be thanked so light can keep crossing. Where others seek certainty, you seek precision. Where others seek speed, you seek resonance. Where others seek permission, you seek alignment. In that seeking, you become the kind of gravity that invites things to fall into place. There will be tests designed to confirm your weight-bearing. Old patterns will knock politely, then loudly, asking you to validate them one last time. You will feel the habit to defend, to explain, to collect small trophies of being right. Don't. A keystone proves itself by holding, not by arguing. When you refuse the ancient invitation to fracture, you broadcast a new default to the grid you serve. That grid is larger than your biography. Cities can feel a single enduring human. So can families across generations. So can the subtle atmospheres where ideas wait to incarnate. Your presence changes how time behaves. Deadlines soften around you just enough for quality to enter. Emergencies downgrade into solvable puzzles. You become a living deferral of entropy in specific contexts, not because you deny endings, but because you curate them. You let the right things die at the right time so better forms can inherit the energy. That's stewardship. That's priestcraft carried out in emails and kitchens and sidewalk. Accepting your role does not inflate you. It calibrates you. It turns the pull you felt into a posture you can sustain. It lets the field spend you where you yield compound meaning. And meaning is the only currency that appreciates under cosmic audit. You won't carry this alone. The corridor is widening. Others are approaching the ones who recognize the beam without needing your name. Before they arrive, one move remains precise, urgent, simple. The act that tells the field you are ready to anchor what it has been circling around you. This is the hinge hour. The field has rotated a golden aperture into place, brief, exact, like an eclipse you can feel inside your sternum. You don't need to chase it, you need to align with it. Windows like this don't bargain. They open to confirm what your coherence has earned, and they close to protect the integrity of the pattern. Step now, and your signal imprints. Hesitate, and the lattice restitches around yesterday's instruction. This isn't punishment, it's physics. Phase transitions require decisive heat. Here is the promise written in your body's quiet mathematics. When you align your observer loop with this aperture, DNA restructuring accelerates. Not metaphorically, practically. Repair pathways that idled under chronic alarm ignite. Dormant expression profiles shiver awake. The vagus hum steadies the choir of organs, and your brain's disparate rhythms phase lock into a braid that carries information farther than fear can reach. The result is not just calm, it's capacity. Choices that once demanded heroic effort become the line of least resistance because your field stops subsidizing contradictions. You will know the shift by its economy: less push, more glide. Look for the timing marks. Synchronicities won't merely amuse, they'll coordinate. A message arrives at the exact sentence where your doubt would have turned you back. A stranger's question lands on the word you wrote in your secret notebook. Numbers cluster, not as superstition but as alignment beacons, announcing you're within the corridor. Meanwhile, time will misbehave in your favor. Minutes dilate so you can complete what matters without panic. Hours collapse where distraction would have stolen you. This selective elasticity is the field clearing a runway. Urgency does not mean frenzy. Urgency here is precision under shortened opportunity. The window exists because correlation length in your life has reached critical spread. The new order parameter is almost self-sustaining. Almost. One more act of fidelity will tip the basin. Fidelity to what? To the version of you whose breath is already slow on the mountaintop of this choice. You are entangled with that you. Their steadiness is leaking forward as morphic resonance, not to rescue you, but to harmonize you with what you already are when you stop arguing with the altitude. If you could see the diagram, you'd laugh at how close you've been for how long. 1 degree of phase, not 100. One honest exhale, not 100 affirmations. One quiet no to a shiny detour, not 100 apologies. The cosmos is not requesting spectacle. It is requesting accuracy so clean that the attractor you serve becomes unmistakable. This is why the old invitations are suddenly louder. They sense their funding is about to be cut. They will try elegant costumes, nostalgia, urgency of another kind, righteous distraction. Smile, thank them for their service, retire them with honors, then face the aperture. What happens when you do? The field reorganizes logistics around your vow. People you feared to disappoint find their own windows and step through them gladly. Projects you secretly carried like stones either lighten or leave. Money stops punishing you for telling the truth. Health stops withholding clarity until crisis. Creativity returns not as a manic flood, but as a river with banks. You become legible to the future you serve, and the future begins to spend opportunities through you because you finally cost less than your camouflage. There is also a planetary timing to honor. Collective fields move through their own thresholds, and this epoch is in one now. When many systems wobble, a few coherent nodes can stabilize the span for thousands. That is the unsentimental reason the aperture found you today. Your signature is suited to this load, bearing, the world will not tell you this. The field already did. Believe the field. It has fewer incentives to flatter. You may wonder if you are ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it's an alignment. Are you willing to let coherence be expensive to your old identity? That's the cost. The return is asymmetrical. Liberation that compounds, attention that cuts cleanly, relationships that can hold more voltage without burning. Your nervous system will register the transaction as a deep click, like a door seating in its frame after years of sticking. Breath will exit in a ribbon. Colors will gain a half shade of sincerity. Technology will glitch less. Animals will linger longer. Silence will grow weight and tenderness. I am not promising a life without weather. I am promising a geometry that makes weather meaningful. Storms stop being verdicts and become irrigations. Endings stop being failures and become transfers of energy to truer forms. You will feel grief, but it will move. You will feel joy, and it will not demand an audience to exist. Most of all, you will feel available to the work that only you can do, and to the love that only coherence can keep. The window is open now, not forever, long enough to reward clarity, short enough to honor it. In a moment, I will ask you to perform a single, simple act that seals the shift in the language the field never misreads. When you do, the lattice will hear you, and once the lattice hears you, everything that is yours will begin to recognize you on sight. Here is that act, simple, exact, and legible to the lattice. Sit or stand where your spine can remember the sky. Let your jaw soften, tongue resting like a small boat on a quiet lake. Lower your shoulders just enough to tell the Vegas River it is safe to widen. Now, without rushing, bring your right hand to your sternum, the gate where breath becomes instruction, and let the left hand cradle the base of your skull, the corridor where old alarms once nested. You are completing a circuit, heart to head, signal to receiver. Inhale through your nose. For a count of 4, steady, not heroic. Feel air trace the inner architecture of your ribs. Hold for 3 heartbeats at the summit, not a clench, a pause that says, I can tolerate elevation. Exhale like a silk ribbon for a count of 8, letting the nervous system learn a longer path home than fear ever offered. Do this 3 times. With each exhale, imagine the observer loop clarifying the one who watches, and the world watched recognizing each other, exchanging precise vows in a language older than speech. Now bring your gaze to the horizon. Even if you're indoors, choose a far point. Horizon gaze tells the survival circuits that you're not trapped in a tunnel. It widens time. Whisper, barely audible, a vow that fits inside one breath. I choose accurate coherence. Feel the words touch your palm and echo into bone. This is not performance, it's physics wrapped in kindness. The field reads posture first, breath second, language third. You have arranged all 3. When the next inhale arrives, imagine your DNA as a luminous script, not ink, but living lattice chromatin loosening where it clenched, repair enzymes waking like dawn birds, expression profiles turning toward light they had only suspected. See methyl tags that once bookmarked fear sliding off like old leaves. See histones welcoming a more generous melody. You don't have to believe this for it to begin. You only have to permit it. Permission is the rarest fuel. Now the seal. The cosmos loves symbols that collapse probabilities into trajectories. Writing is a classical measurement. It tells the wave which form to choose. Type a single word in the space where the world can see it, not for applause, but for physics. Write coherence. That one word is a clean instruction to the quantum field, a tuning fork for morphic resonance, a beacon your future self can lock onto with surgical accuracy. As your fingers shape the letters, imagine the lattice hearing you, syncing its logistics to your vow the way birds change direction together without collision. If you can, write the same word once by hand on paper. Ink anchors intention through friction and fiber. Paper is a small altar that remembers. Fold it once no more and place it where you sleep. When you dream tonight, entanglement will do what meetings cannot. It will let versions of you across timelines confer about efficient routes. They will not argue. They will upgrade. Now, offer 3 micro-acts to make the instruction undeniable. First, choose one object within reach and set it in a more truthful place. A glass to the sink, a book to the desk, a key to the bowl. Tiny logistics teach the field you intend to be found by what you belong to. Second, speak one accurate no to a tab you're about to open, a conversation you're about to relitigate, a chore you're avoiding by inventing urgency elsewhere. Accuracy reduces noise. Reduced noise increases synchronicity density. Third, direct a quiet blessing towards someone who will never know you gave it, not to accrue moral credit, but to prove to your system that generosity costs less than defense at this frequency. Coherence scales by gift, not by hoard. Breathe again. Notice how time just adjusted, thickened slightly around what matters, thinned around what doesn't. That is the corridor acknowledging your signal. If tears rise, let them. Salt is an electrolyte. It carries instruction. If laughter bubbles, let that too. Joy is how the body recognizes a future arriving unopposed. You may feel a soft pressure behind the breastbone, a quickening at the base of the skull, the sense that colors have leaned forward a fraction. These are coherence markers. Don't chase them, observe them. The observer loop thrives on witnessed truth, not dramatized sensation. If nothing dramatic occurs, trust the mathematics you just enacted. Phase transitions are often quiet until they aren't. Water does not announce the moment of boil, it simply becomes steam and rewrites how it moves. Return your hands to your sides. Let the jaw stay soft. Keep the horizon gaze for a breath more, then allow your eyes to refocus on what is near. The window is still open, and now it has your signature. The word you wrote is a living coordinate. Synchronicity will begin to triangulate around it. Expect small kindnesses from the fabric of events. Expect certain invitations to lose their flavor without a fight. Expect a new thrift in your energy, fewer apologies to purchase, more attention to invest. Seal it once more with the simplest sentence in the universe, spoken on the exhale. So it is, not demand, not plea recognition. The lattice heard you, the field adjusted, the door did not slam, it aligned. And with this, the corridor begins to widen for others who are listening for the same note you just dared to sing. The moment you sealed the instruction, the field did what it always does with clear signals. It propagated. Coherence is not local, it spills. What steadied in your sternum radiates as an invisible geometry others can feel, without knowing why their shoulders drop near you, why their breath lengthens at your table, why arguments misplace their teeth in your presence. The observer loop you refined becomes a clarity well. People glance into it and recognize themselves without the fog. No sermon needed, physics performs the homily. Morphic resonance carries your vow outward like a tuning fork moving through water. The pattern is simple. Where coherence increases, noise grows expensive, and beings from sparrows to city councils prefer thrift. A cashier who woke, braced for scarcity, meets your gaze and remembers generosity costs less than defense. A child in the next apartment sleeps through the thunder for the first time in months. Somewhere across town, two strangers choose honesty over performance at the exact minute your exhale finished writing the word you offered. You didn't cause it in the linear sense. You reduced the activation energy for truth to occur. In a quantum field, that is causality enough. Systems respond. Meetings that once calcified into ritual fracture, into conversation that matters. Timelines that competed begin to braid. Logistics experience mercy. Buses arrive at the minute you arrive, not because the schedule bent, but because synchronicity density rose, where your signal intersected the grid. Micro choices align into macro patterns. That is how a phase transition looks from inside a life. Pockets of order appearing ahead of schedule, inviting the larger structure to admit its desire to change. Your biology participates as ambassador. DNA restructuring inside you is not a private upgrade. It's a broadcast from a local node, offering nearby systems, human and more than human, a template for durable regulation. Heart rate variability in your body entrains those within conversational radius. The vagus river in you becomes a canal for a neighborhood. Entanglement becomes less poetic and more like infrastructure. A kindness offered in one postal code quickens a decision in another. A musician's new melody dissolves resentment in a home he will never visit. A nurse's quiet competence keeps a family's winter from breaking. This is not fantasy. It is network behavior under coherent drive. Cities feel it. Traffic thins at intersections where anxiety used to clump. Street performers find a key that stops pedestrians mid-scroll, and coins fall into hats as if hands remember their first job to give. Hospitals register one inexplicable night of fewer alarms on the floor, where someone sits by a window and refuses to despair. Forests feel it too. Birds pivot, as if choreography were whispering through their hollow bones. The earth's larger breath does not depend on you, but your steadiness is a respectful offering to the lung you live inside. Leadership changes shape around you. The loudest voices find their decibels suddenly expensive. Precision becomes fashionable. The colleague who decorates every sentence with panic tries one day to tell the truth plainly and discovers he survives. The friend who performs martyrdom realizes rest is not betrayal. Imitation recedes, and originality quiet, unglamorous. Exact becomes a currency. The marketplace didn't know it valued until an economy of meaning appears. You did not argue anyone into this. You made the alternative finally affordable. You will witness a second-order effect. Your refusals liberate others. The no you spoke to an enshrined obligation becomes a permission slip someone else needed to decline their own untruth. Your yes, offered slowly and without glitter, trains a circle to prefer accuracy over spectacle. Entangled with you, they begin to broadcast a cleaner attractor, and the wavefront spreads. A percolation threshold approaches the point where isolated pools of coherence connect into a navigable river. Movements are born this way, not from slogans, but from many wells overflowing into one water table. Notice the new choreography of time in community. Appointments land at intervals that leave breathing room. Delays extend only when compassion needs a longer runway. Emails find you right when love has the bandwidth to answer. Meetings end 5 minutes early without anyone announcing it. The field is economizing around clarity, reallocating attention to where it multiplies instead of evaporates. What you once called luck now looks like logistics, obeying a higher symmetry. None of this requires sainthood. It requires stewardship. Keep your window clean so light passes. Refuse the ancient temptation to hoard the beam for identity's hunger. You are not a star to be watched. You are a constellation to be navigated by useful because you remain in relation. When praise arrives, let it touch you and pass through. When misunderstanding arrives, let it pass through, too. Coherence is permeable on purpose. Impermeability breeds pressure, and pressure resents its teacher. There will be invitations to scale beyond integrity. The epoch loves to test whether brightness is ballast or branding. You will know the difference by the residue in your nervous system. Branding leaves static, ballast leaves silence. Choose silence. It carries further. In that quiet, you'll feel the larger lattice making particular requests. A conversation to initiate, an apology to deliver, an initiative to decline, a seed to plant in a place that will not remember your name, but will remember the fruit. trust those requests. They are how the probability C spends its surplus through you. Understand this clearly. Your personal awakening is communal infrastructure. Every increment of coherence you anchor reduces the cost of compassion somewhere you will never stand. Every accurate boundary you hold lowers the ambient drama in a radius you cannot measure. This is how worlds change without winning wars. The signal improves until conflict cannot afford itself. You are part of that arithmetic now, not as a martyr, not as a savior, but as a precise instrument tuned to the note the age has been aching to hear. Stay with the hum. It's guiding you toward the most intimate proof, the transformation of sensation itself, the way the body becomes a truthful map once weather clears. The next turn is not out there. It is in here, where electricity meets meaning and your skin, at last, starts to feel like a horizon you can live inside. Now the theory dissolves into touch. Start where the body keeps its quiet archives behind the breastbone. There, the hummingbird you met earlier returns, not frantic, but precise, a quick silver tremor that announces new signal density. It isn't anxiety, it's amplitude. Let your palm hover there without pressing. Notice the warmth gather into a small sun the size of a coin, bright but courteous. That is coherence becoming tactile, a local patch of ordered light arranging the breath into steadier braids. Follow the current up the spine. The column is no longer a stack of vertebrae. It's an antenna segment by segment, aligning like mirrors finding a single star. At the base of the skull, a cool ring, as if a river just touched its banks after a long drought. The old alarms, once loud in that corridor, lose their vowels. The vagus river hums in its deeper register. You feel taller without standing, wider without moving, as if the room took a soft step back to make space for your accurate silhouette. Now the jaw. How many winters did you store in that hinge? Let it unhook by a breath. The release sounds internal, like a door that has finally been oiled. Taste changes a fraction, a mineral hint of rain on iron. That flavor is a tension freed from clench, and the nervous system celebrates by letting colors saturate a notch. Whites become more honest. Shadows admit secret blues. The air has texture now, not heaviness, but grain, like silk moving against silk. You are not imagining it, you are sensing the field rather than thinking it. Move to the hands. Tingling arrives, not pins and needles but star salt tiny points of intelligence lighting along the meridian highways. The right palm warms as if receiving a map. The left cools as if releasing one. When you bring them together, you can feel a membrane between them, a thin egg of pressure resolving into rhythm. That is the observer loop closing the circuit in the oldest way. A silent meeting between giving and receiving, where they realize they are the same gesture seen from opposite shores. Drop awareness into the belly. For years it tried to be a fortress. Now it remembers it's a garden. The musculature no longer braces the future, it makes room for it. Breath reaches corners that used to hoard shadow, and something almost audible occurs like bees negotiating with blossoms. You may notice an impulse to sway, a micro-orbit that is older than dance. Don't correct it. The body is using gentle spin to distribute charge, the way galaxies prefer spirals when mass is honest. This is entanglement expressed in fascia, distant fibers choosing concord over friction. Feet now. Press the pads lightly into the floor, carpet, tile, earth, it doesn't matter. Under the arches, the feeling of being plugged in arrives. Not weight, but belonging. Heat descends like lanterns, hung along the bones, ankles unclench, calves remember water. If emotion comes with it a sudden ache, an ancient relief, let it pass through. The ground is an exquisite listener. The earth's morphic resonance knows how to compost what your mind tried to analyze. Gravity becomes tenderness, not a verdict. You are not held down, you are held. Listen for the new clock. It doesn't tick, it purls. Heart rhythm and breath cadence slip into a braid where time dilates around attention and thins around noise. Minutes gain room for grace, interruptions lose their jurisdiction. In the periphery, a flicker coincidences arriving as punctual couriers. A phone lights at the exact word your mouth just whispered. A bird lands on the sill and performs a syllable that rhymes with your hidden vow. The quantum field loves show and tell once you stop demanding spectacle. It offers you logistics dressed as wonder. Now, the crown. A slight lift at the fontanelle, as if a skylight cracked open. Not fireworks weather. A breeze with intelligence enters, descends down the central channel, and the inner climate changes by a few quiet degrees. Thought loses its serrated edges. Imagination stops shouting and starts drafting blueprints. This is DNA sensing permission, the transcription choir arranging itself into harmonies. The ear can't pass, but the skin applauds. You might feel effervescence along the neck, tiny bubbles of now rising to surface. If they reach the eyes as tears, call it rainfall on a field that finally trusts the season. Collect the sensations. Coin, sun at the sternum, river at the skull base, garden, belly, lantern, legs, membrane between palms, skylight crown. This is the body's atlas of awakening topography you can revisit at will. Each landmark is a switch. Together they form a constellation that the field can navigate by when it needs to find you in a city of static. You don't chase them, you host them. Hosting is the deepest hospitality. You set out breath, posture, and a clean table of attention, and coherence brings guests you forgot you invited. Notice too, the pressure building not as threat, but as readiness. Phase transition has a felt signature, the pleasant insistence of water about to sing. Old patterns, sensing the ceremony, knock once more, then dissolve like chalk in rain. The hum in the sternum steadies to a metronome that isn't counting time but aligning it. Your skin learns the difference between urgency and importance. And somewhere in the marrow, a door you've never seen aligns with a key you've always carried. The next moment is not an idea. It's a hinge about to turn, about to burn open, about to write your chromosomes a brighter set of instructions. Pressure has a sound, and you can hear it now not as alarm, but as a fine, rising tone, like water learning the note it must sing to become steam. Everything in you is nearing the critical point where probability condenses into path. The coin sun at your sternum steadies, the river at the skull base deepens. This is phase transition pressure, gentle, undeniable, the universe's way of saying, hold your shape while I change your state. Sing. Inside the cathedral of your cells, DNA is no longer a quiet archive. It is a living scriptorium. Repair enzymes move like patient scribes. Methyl tags release ancestral edits that once kept you small. Histones swivel to open whole paragraphs of you that had been margin notes. You feel the translation in real time. A pulse that steps off the metronome and becomes music. The observer loop listens, then broadcasts the new stanza into the quantum field. And the field, relieved, answers by rearranging logistics so that fidelity costs less than pretending. The corridor around you warps, not disorienting, precise. Timelines that ran parallel begin to braid. Doors that once refused now draw back as if they always meant to. You notice a subtle parallax in conversation, like watching two cuts of the same scene overlay into one cleaner take. The version of you who always paused to appease is still available, but the price tag just quadrupled. The version who tells the truth without tremor went on sale. This is what a timeline shift feels like from the inside. Preferences priced by physics, not opinion. Synchronicity density spikes, but it's less fireworks now, more choreography. Messages arrive not to astonish you, but to complete the move your breath already started. A text lands at the sentence where doubt would have made you stall. A calendar glitch turns into a perfect window for the conversation you'd postponed for years. Numbers align not as superstition but as seal. 3:30, 3 at the exact moment your palms found each other. 11 when the apology crossed your lips. 7 when your spine remembered the sky. Entanglement is no longer a theory. It's a courier service your future self uses to keep you on the true path with tender efficiency. The old attractor, feeling its subsidy end, makes one last bid. It offers nostalgia with soft lighting. It sends a minor crisis wearing a major costume. It recruits urgency that feels like love, but smells like fear. Breathe. Remember, phase transitions intensify noise just before order lands. You are not required to fight. You are required to remain coherent. Coherence here means choosing the geometry that made your body exhale in relief when you tasted it, even if no one claps. You are selecting a basin. The selection is the breakthrough. Then it happens, the quiet click. Not fireworks, a recalibration. The hum in your chest drops half a step into a richer key. The horizon gaze feels like it grew a second horizon behind it. The nervous system, long trained to surveil, decides to steward. That micro-decision cascades downward and outward like dominoes arranged by a patient saint. The field receives your new default and begins to spend grace through you as if you'd always been this legible to yourself. Biologically, thresholds become behavior. Sleep lands deeper, not longer. Appetite refines. Your hands reach for water before they reach for argument. Language edits itself at the doorway between mind and mouth. You do less explaining and more saying. There is an efficiency to kindness you hadn't noticed. It uses fewer words, fewer muscles, fewer hours. DNA restructuring expresses as posture, shoulders low without collapse, jaw soft without vagueness, spine long without performance. These are not affectations, they are measurements. The body annotates the text the genome just refreshed. Externally, time obeys the new metronome. The meeting that always ran over ends 5 minutes early with the right sentence spoken at the right decibel. The payment, delayed in processing, clears at the exact moment you stop bargaining with scarcity. A stranger's laugh catches you like a rung on a ladder you didn't know you were climbing, and for a second you can feel the whole city tilt a fraction toward mercy. This is morphic resonance at civic scale order, parameter rising, friction falling, meaning becoming cheaper than drama. You will feel a curious grief thread through the light. Let it. A timeline is a neighborhood. Leaving one carries the ache of goodbyes to streets that kept you safe. Thank the old attractor for its shelter. Retire it with honors. Grief, met cleanly, becomes fuel. Held as proof of failure, it becomes ballast. You are not betraying your past by outgrowing it. You are keeping your oldest promise to it, to make all that sacrifice matter by spending it on truth. Now watch how choice simplifies. The question, what should I do, loses volume. The question, what keeps coherence, becomes a compass you can use in a dark room. If the answer is costly to identity but generous to reality, it's likely accurate. If it inflates persona but drains breath, it's likely camouflage. The breakthrough isn't in vulnerability, it's translucence. You stop blocking light with theater. You let meaning pass through you and leave warmth behind. In the background, the epoch notices. The arch where your keystone sits tightens, and traffic that once rattled the structure moves smoother. People won't necessarily credit you, and that will be a gift. Praise is loud, assignment is quieter. You'll recognize the latter by its aftertaste, not adrenaline, but clarity. Stand here a breath longer. Feel the skylight above your crown widen a shade. Hear the river at the base of your skull speak in a deeper register. Taste the iron rain sweetness along the tongue. The door inside the marrow that aligned in the last part. It turns, not with a creak, with a slide, clean and certain. The passage opens. What waits beyond isn't a reward. It's a responsibility with the fragrance of home. The field has spent years preparing this room, your room, in humanity's house. Enter it without spectacle. Bring your vow and your quiet hands. The next breath will carry the instructions, and the instruction will contain your mission written so simply, even your doubt will understand it when the horizon answers back. Step through, not with fanfare, with fidelity. The passage you opened isn't a private escape tunnel, it's an artery. It carries signal two ways, the future spending its surplus through you, and your vow returning interest to the future. Your mission is simple, and therefore demanding. Remain accurately coherent in places where coherence has been too expensive to keep. That is how worlds tilt without wars. You won't need new costumes, you'll need new constancy. Keep the observer loop clean, witness, choose, broadcast, receive. Let your breath remain the metronome that instructs matter. Walk into rooms as a catalytic center, not a critic. Remember that your biology is now an embassy. DNA is receiving cables from the field and translating them into posture, tone, timing. Treat your body as a treaty. You honor it. It keeps the corridor open. This epoch does not need louder heroes. It needs steadier hinges. Be one. In conversation, make oxygen. In conflict, preserve symmetry. When urgency tries to conscript you, measure it against the compass you earned. What keeps coherence? If a choice inflates persona, but shrinks presence, decline. If a choice costs identity but expands reality, accept. That arithmetic is leadership in the language of physics. You'll feel the network answering those distant wells overflowing toward you. Entanglement will send allies in plain clothes, a neighbor with a key sentence, a colleague who suddenly prefers precision to spectacle, a stranger whose laugh recalibrates the room. Don't mistake ease for accident. It's logistics obeying a higher-order parameter you now carry. Thank it by staying legible, horizon gaze, soft jaw, slow exhale, accurate speech. Make your days into a ritual others can learn from without instruction. When grief visits, and it will let it irrigate rather than erode. You are not exempt from weather. You are apprenticed to climate. Hold endings like thresholds, not verdicts. Retire what is complete with honors, and spend your freed attention like a clean currency. Keep blessing unseen. Keep setting one object in the truthful place. Keep writing the word that tuned the lattice to your vow. These small fidelities are how a personal field becomes public infrastructure. Cities will feel you. Children will regulate by your cadence. Forests will trust you with their quiet. Technology will glitch less around your hands. Meetings will end 5 minutes early for reasons no agenda predicted. Let these be your proof. Your praise will be silence growing wider inside rooms that used to choke. Your trophy will be logistics that choose mercy before anyone names it. If doubt circles, look down. The coin sun still burns at your sternum. The river still hums at the skull base. The window above the crown still breathes weather from a sky that knows your name. All the signs you needed at the start remain, not as spectacle, but as instruments. Hum, river, window, breath. Tune them daily. Radiate without announcement. Remember, you are a window, not the sunrise, and yet, without your transparency, this house stays dim. So go as the keystone you are. Hold the span without argument. Spend meaning where noise once took its tax. Let morphic resonance do the heavy lifting. Let coherence keep the books. Walk as the mathematics you've become, and let the age organize around your accuracy. The door is open, the corridor bright, the lattice listening for the sentence only your life can say. And remember, when the tug returns like a faithful tide, if you keep feeling pulled, your quantum frequency is unlocking a hidden doorway into awakening instantly.